Good afternoon. First, I would like to welcome you all here today at the follow-up Residents' Assembly meeting to discuss a modified selection process methodology. Thank you all for attending this meeting. Here is our team, Residents' Assembly Service, who is holding this process. Dan, Giovanni, Verena, Satish, Tatiana, the facilitator, our dedicated facilitator, Julia, who is going to hold and facilitate the event. Here are the members of the SPRTF Selection Process Review Task Force, Martin and Philippe. A big thank you for their dedication and support. And we would like also to express our big thank you to all volunteers who also helped us organize this event. We thank you, Oroville Radio, for live streaming, the Silent Presence Keepers pool as well. Thank you very much. So I'm turning it to Julia.
Thank you, Tatiana. Yeah, welcome everybody. We probably have more people watching online if I look at the quite empty room here today. I would like just to have a look with you on the agenda. We just passed by the welcome and intention. I have like a little invitation to focus all together, which I will talk about. Then Giovanni will just give a short introduction to the RAD process and where we're at with the second Residents' Assembly meeting. Then the SPRTF, Martin and Philippe will present the updated proposal on the selection methodology. And we will also have open space for question and answers so that everything can be included. Towards the end, the RES will take the pulse on whether this proposal is ready to go for voting or not. And we will see. Then there will be just an information about next steps, and we're already at the closing, most probably around 6, depending on how much we feel like we have to discuss. So I thought about having kind of ground rules for this meeting, and I was inspired by something else. And this is a suggestion, it's an invitation, and I know we're all sometimes struggling with it. So the invitation would be to have an open mind as much as possible, which means listening with curiosity, expressing yourself clearly and concise when you're raising your voice. Also, be here with an open heart as much as possible. So connect with respect and try to drop the judgment. I know we're all judging all the time, that's how our brain works, but to be conscious about it makes a big difference. And last but not least, be as much as possible here with an open will, because we're here to decide something all together, and it's really crucial to really try to go with the flow if there is a movement that is collectively emerging, and also try to include others' views. So as said in the beginning, this is just an invitation. Let's just try our best and see where we're at. Okay, I would like to invite Martin and Philippe to... Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to... Sorry. I was confused.
Thank you, Julia. I will be very quick. Just a brief presentation about the process we are using to come up with a final decision. So the first step, as many of you may recall, is a petition. It can come from 60 residents or more, or it can come from a working group. Then we move to RAM 1, so the first resident assembly meeting, which we just had a few weeks ago on this topic. And the meaning of the first RAM is to introduce the topic and invite feedback. Then we have had already a period of feedback, which we, RAS, collected, and we handed over to the task force in this case. And the task force had to consider all your feedback and then deciding if taking this feedback into consideration or not, and we will hear from them soon. So this is where we are now, in the second RAM. And the purpose of this meeting is to have a look at the revised proposal. And then at the end, as we have seen in the agenda, deciding if the proposal is ready to be put out to the community for voting, and we will also have a little discussion about voting options. So we are here. What's coming next then? So let's assume that in this room and also those online will agree on moving on. So RAS will do a report of this meeting, and then we will send, as we have done in the past, a personalized voting link that each resident of each Aurovilian, confirmed Aurovilian, can use to express his vote or her vote. And we will give 2 weeks for people to vote. There is another possibility that at the end of this meeting, when Tatiana will ask the room and the online participants if they feel the proposal is ready, they might feel otherwise. So they may conclude, you may conclude that for whatever reason, it is not ready. Then we go to another RAM. So there is a RAM 3 and possibly an RAM 4 or 5. This process will stop when you, the participants in the room and online, will decide that the proposal is ready. And that is the end of my presentation. And the beginning of Martin.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So we would have time for questions after the presentation. If there's something very urgent, just please note it so that you don't forget it. But let them just go through the presentation so that they can concentrate.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Probably go to the DeSelection anyway. So, welcome. There were 1 or 2 people that have not been thanked so far, and I would really like to thank them, because we actually had some other members, apart from Philippe and myself, of the SPRTF group, selection process, forgotten what, task force, anyway. So we started off with 7 people, a few of them dropped out, but the people who have really made a contribution, apart from Philippe and myself, I should especially mention Sanjeev, because he's recently passed away, and he was an important part of this group and really worked with us hard on the proposal. So I'd like to publicly thank Sanjeev for his work on this. Also, Jaya gave some input, and we have Jean-Francois, who is he's out of Oroville right now, but he's been giving input online. So it's a group that's been working closely together. So Anyway, we've got to, I hope everybody read the original proposal, and I hope everybody's read the new one. Because although we have a new proposal here, I don't propose to go through it line by line. But what I wanted to do first of all was to go through the process that we've been through for feedback. Because we've actually done more work, I think, almost more work, in processing the feedback than we have actually writing the proposal in the first place. And you'll see in a moment why. We've had 121 people give feedback. Now, this is exceptional. We've never had, I don't think, in the past, that many people giving feedback to a proposal. And I really want to thank everybody who's done that, because it was a lot of work on behalf of a lot of people. We had 121 by online and 18 emails. So, and we asked everybody that gave feedback to each paragraph to say whether they agreed or disagreed with the paragraph. And those bars down the bottom there show how this thing works. Anyway, those bars down the bottom there show the agreement that we got on that. So we could have said, oh, well, everybody agrees, we can let it go now. But no, there was some really decent feedback. There was some really useful feedback. So we've done our work in incorporating it. We've got something between 80 and 90% agreement on the whole thing. So I'm really, I think I'm grateful that people have given that sort of approval. So, how was the feedback considered? So, first of all, we should make clear that the feedback was given to the RAS, and it was given to us anonymously. The RAS know who the feedback came from, we don't. So, except one or two who signed their name at the bottom, but largely we don't know where the feedback came from. So, mind you, we can guess some of them. But we asked ourselves questions, because to incorporate all the feedback would have been completely impossible. There were contradictions and all sorts of things, you know. So we asked a number of questions with each piece of feedback. Was it helpful? Did it fit with the general principles of the proposal? And those are basically random selection of the selection group, learning sessions for the selection group, and independent selection teams. So they were sort of principles that we said, no, we're not going outside that. That's what we've decided we want to do. But we'll change things as needed. So, were there contradictory views? So some people said, I really like this, and someone else says, I really don't like this, then we think maybe it's about right. You know. So, were there several similar feedbacks? Obviously, if there are several similar feedbacks, then we've tried to, we think it's probably about right. Was the general support for the section or the idea similar to the last? Were there specific suggestions for change? We gave two columns. We gave for feedback and suggestions. Now, where there was just feedback and it was somebody's opinion, it's very difficult to know what to do about it sometimes. So if we got specific suggestions, we looked at those more carefully. So, main feedback. So we received a lot of feedback on several topics. One of the first one was the TDC should be included in this, and we sort of agreed to that. We agreed with that, and we made a few modifications accordingly. DeSelection should be included. We'll discuss this a little bit later, but essentially we said we don't, because it was at quite a late stage, that we don't have the capacity and we don't really feel that it's our job to do that. So we communicated that with the council, and there's a member of the council here who's willing to speak on that. So we'll look at that a little bit later. So if you don't mind putting that up sort of a little bit later. The other thing was the use of randomization, a mix of, so we had quite a lot of people who liked randomization, and there were quite a lot of people who didn't. So we thought, well, it's okay, it must be about, actually, I think more people liked it than. So I'll quickly run through the other feedback that we received. Emphasis on specific skills, and we've done a bit of work on that. Candidates should commit to work to the working group mandate. Feedback on candidates in general. So the feedback section that we'd put in there was quite a few comments on that, and we've improved it. Not enough space for feedback, yep, we've increased that. Preparation knowledge needed for selection of TDC members. Yeah, we agreed that it needed more knowledge and more work to select TDC members, so we've included that. Interviews with candidates should be with the whole selection group. Yes, we took that and that's been done. We've changed the process slightly. Selection group numbers and selection process, yes. There were quite a few comments on the number of people should be in the selection group. Some people thought it should be less, and some people said, I think 6. Some people said it should be much more, 200 or something. So we thought that perhaps our 40 was probably about right, so we've stuck with 40. Importance to select a good team as well as skilled individual members. Yes, we took that on and we've modified the process accordingly. So there should be a balance of gender, nationality, but we believe that that will come out in the randomness. So a few other things. Backup candidates, we've passed on that one. Miscellaneous notes about silent observers, complexity. Some people found it too complex. Some people didn't. Suggestions of games for the team building. Well, they can do it if they want to, but we didn't put it in the procedure. Suggestion of streaming the whole event. Not really, because it needs to be done. The teamwork is very much teamwork and not public work. So we didn't feel that was appropriate. Issue of confidentiality of feedback, and I'll go into that, but yes, the feedback will not go outside the the selection room. So we had a few very different proposals put to us. But at the beginning I said that we're sticking with our basic principles. So selection by wise people, selection by members of ex-members of the working groups, solution positioning, I don't know what that is. Voting based and grids with points. Anyway, these are all different proposals that came up. And a few others which we didn't address. So a monitoring group for working groups to follow their mandates, not really part of the selection. Somebody said that they thought it wasn't very readable, but judging by the feedback that we got, people did understand it. So. RAD reform needed, yeah, okay. Computer programs versus human organization. We decided mainly on computer programs, but some feedback pointing to issues of governance in general. Yeah, we got a few of those. Lack of integrity, vested interests, lack of alignment to individuals and groups within Oroville. So we didn't feel that those were, it was really appropriate to look at those. So, these are the main improvements that we've done. So we've added in the round that we're in the process where the groups, the individual groups, because there's actually 4 groups of 10 who work on the proposal, who work on the selection itself. They look at the individual candidates. So in that section, we were asked to improve that so that the groups could have more knowledge of a team and building a team. So we broke this up into 2 sections, and we'll show you a bit about that in a moment. We decided that if only one group came up with, if there was only one group that came up with a candidate, that probably wasn't enough. So we've excluded any candidate that only gets one group vote. And the last one there is the process is, yes, this is very important. The process is open for any working group. And that's what we've said in the whole proposal. We've said, look, we've tailored this so it could be used for any working group, including the TDC. We've allowed sufficient information to be provided to the selectors so that they can select people from the TDC. But likewise, we also feel that the selection process could be used for other groups. So if we decide that, for example, the land board should be selected in this way, then we believe that this process would be suitable for other groups. So we've made it flexible enough so that it can be used for other groups. Now I'm going to break just there for a moment because, or do you want to continue with your bit and then we go back? Yeah? Okay. Oh, well, okay. Well, we've got a part on the individual selection teams. Do you want to do that? Okay, we'll go to the next slide. That one? Do you want to do that? Yeah. Okay. I'll come back to the proposal in a moment.
Yeah, we had some discussions, a bit heavy discussion with Martin just before, so I'm a bit tensed now. Yeah. So this is the same as before. If you were here, this is basically we start getting a random selection of 40 people, 40 volunteers. The first change with the first version of the proposal was that the interviews, it was not really defined. Now because of some feedbacks, the interviews with the people, with the candidates, will be done all together. So within the 40 people in let's say, the first day. Now, at some point, let's say when there's some feedback here. We're talking a lot about feedbacks here. But there's a sound feedback here, a bit. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's okay, we'll try. So let's say when the 40 people have all the information they need to do the selections, like the role of the working groups, eventually the roles within the working groups, the specific skills needed, and all those kind of things, and the information about the candidates. So once the interviews was done with all the candidates, then, as same as before, this team of 40 is split in 4 equal. Tick. Yeah. And they work, and basically, ideally, from now on till the end, everything is done in the single day. So at the end of the day, really the idea is that as much as possible, the selection should be over. There's a reason for that, is we try to get the separate team as independent as possible so that they don't influence each other. So we split in, let's say, 3 rounds. The first round is just as before, means that the 4 subgroups, independent selection teams, they do their own selection. So for this group, there would be, for example, like 3 positions to fill. So we have Mr. Blue, Mrs. Green, and Mrs. Orange, and all those candidates, so that here you can see that Mr. Blue was selected by all of them. So Mr. Blue is selected for that working group. Then, basically, the organization team, so the RAS plus a team who will help them, inform each of the subgroups that Mr. Blue has been selected by everyone. So basically, they start getting a more clear picture about those working groups. There will be the ongoing members, which are not represented here, plus Mr. Blue. So now we have the introduction, and this was actually very nice. As Martin said, like those are anonymous. It was really a suggestion by someone. So I don't know, like maybe he's in the room, or like, really thank you for all their feedback. Some of them, they're very constructive. Some of them a bit less, but it was very nice, and it was really the idea having a second room for feedback. So somehow it worked. Yeah, next. So now, like right after this, we know that Mr. Blue was selected. Each subgroup knows that Mr. Blue actually is going to be part of this working committee, TDC, whatever. And knowing, so that's very important information. And then there's a second round, which functions exactly like before, just that information that Mr. Blue was selected. So it is a way to allow those subgroups, basically, to try to select not only a person, but a team making some team building. So basically looking at all the skills, allegedly, that the people already selected have. Let's say maybe they identify that here in that case, Mr. Orange or Mrs. Orange here is the right person to balance or to give another skill that would be missing otherwise. So Mrs. Orange here got in that second round the unanimity of all the subgroups, so that she's selected. And the rest, that was also another suggestion for many people, is that to be in the final hat, so basically be picked randomly, you need to be at least in 2 selections of those subgroups. So that if someone, so for example here, Mr. Pink was selected only by 1 subgroup, so he's not in the final hat. Otherwise, so we have Mrs. Green and Mrs. Purple. They have 2 and 3 respectively. Have been selected by 2 and 3, so that they'll be in the final hat, and click. So that finally we have newly selected Mr. Blue, which was selected in the first round, Mrs. Orange, selected in the second round, and then let's say we have a third person to select. So they will be picked up from this hat thing, so that 3 tokens, 3 names with Mrs. Green and 2 with Mrs. Purple. And then we just pick whatever name missing. It can very much happen that actually no one makes the cut. No one has been selected by more than 1 subgroup. So in that case, and that very much can happen, like depending on, for example, if there's only 1 position to fulfill and 20 candidates, we have relatively less chances to have someone who would have been selected in 2 subgroups. that's a trade-off, basically, for this suggestion of being selected only in 2 subgroups. So it adds just a little bit more, slight more complex, but it gives really the chance to have those 2 rounds to have more team building, and we give another chance basically to reach unanimity. So it's all in all, that's a trade-off that we made, more complexity, but it allows probably some very advantageous thing, like, and specifically more the team building. Like we give a more chance to have a coherent team, or a team with appropriate skills. I think that's it.
Thanks, Philippe. So I'm going to just, I'd like to have sort of interspaced some of this with something what I'm going to show now, but it was difficult to do it on the computer. But so what I'm going to do now is to just show you, I hope this will come up. Yeah, okay. Just to give you an idea of what the feedback looks like that we received. We received that. That's the feedback we received. So there's a lot of it. 121 of them. So
just what we discussed before, like those are almost each and every feedback or comment that we have, like we have put either Martin, myself, or Jean-François at some point for the emails, we put a comment on it. So if someone feels that his or her feedback was not taken in account, we can share this, whatever, with the notes. Like, I don't think it really would bring things that we publish it really publicly, but it's not secret.
No, if anybody wants to say, oh, what do you do with my feedback? Well, like, we can tell you. That's what we did. Basically, we broke it down into each section. And each section, we had the feedback and the suggestions for change, and then we made some notes. So, and you can see here, actually, what we've... the first one was mainly just comment, so there wasn't much we could do, so we said no change. The second one, you can see at the bottom there, they said disagree, okay. So we changed the paragraph, and we put in there what we did to change it. So, and if we go down a bit further, we'll see that there's others that we've changed. Paragraph changed. Subject to a wider debate. Mandates are part of the problem of excess bureaucracy in Oroville. Okay, what do you want us to do about it? So anyway, so we didn't do anything there. The one above, not part of the scope. So to be dealt with by the ABC. And that's what we're talking about earlier. DeSelection. So we'll get a comment from we get something from the ABC a little later. So just to show you that we've considered every feedback. There isn't one that we haven't put something against that's been given. So we did our job. So the next bit I want to show you is the proposal itself. We actually put this online, so you can see this, but this is the combination of both proposals. This is shows the changes that we made. So I just wanted to highlight some specific areas that we've changed. So the first one was to do with the PWG. Now the PWG is the PWG is basically the participatory working group guidelines, which are there that every working group is supposed to follow. So this proposal goes into part 3 of that proposal. Okay? This will be integrated into part 3 of that proposal. And there's a small problem, actually, because the present PWG excludes the TDC. And we've said that we want, or a lot of people have said, big lot of feedback has said, we want the TDC included. So we've changed basically the proposal to make sure that the TDC can be used. It can be used for selecting the TDC, so that it can be used. So what has to be done, obviously, is that needs to be included in the PWG. The PWG at the moment says it's excluded, so we need to make sure that that's changed to include it. So, so just running through. Yeah. Can I make it bigger? Yeah, sure. Try. Is that better?
Maybe even more, if possible.
Bit more? Okay. Is that all right? Okay. Okay. So, yeah, which working groups? So we've put an additional paragraph in there saying that the process selection of working groups according to their mandate and according to the latest version of the PWD document, the process is sufficiently flexible to allow additional information to be provided to the work selection teams to enable them to select members of any group. So, what we've also said is, look, this is intended, of course, it's intended that we do selection processes once a year. But it may not always be so. So what we've said is that this proposal can be used for either all of the working groups at once a year, or it can also be used for an individual working group. If we need to select an individual working group, we can put together a team to do that. So, so that's what we've said. In other words, the process can be repeated for selection of individual or multiple groups at any time of the year. So, yes, there was quite a bit of feedback on specialist skills. So we put some emphasis on specialist skills that need to be looked for. Ah, yes, quite a few people said, oh, the members have to, the candidates need to agree to work to the mandate, to their mandate. And so we put it in there. They should agree to work to the current mandate. It can be a tick box on the form. Candidates should clarify their availability, full-time and part-time availability. And we've also given a little bit extra time for those people who have been nominated by others. It was again a feedback. Yeah, confidentiality. Feedback. It's very important that we don't get into this public debate over people's feedback. The feedback is often very personal. We've allowed only 300 characters in the feedback, so that it's going to be short, but it may be personal. It will be shared only with the selection team, and it will be destroyed afterwards. So it's not something which is a public thing. But we've also now introduced the option that if somebody, so this feedback will be sent to the candidates themselves, and they will be given a chance to respond. So that response will also be given to the selection teams. So they will be given the feedback and they'll be given the responses of the individuals. We felt that that was fair. We didn't feel that we should go into a whole investigation into all of it. We've got the feedback and we've got a response. The selection team has to decide. They can decide that it's nonsense. They can decide that they're not going to take it into account, or they can decide that they do take it into account. It's up to them. Yeah, there's a few clarifications. Yeah, one of the things for this is to do with time flexibility. Because we've been asked to make it suitable for any working group, it does mean that the time, both for the selection itself and for the selection team, the training, if you like, of the selection team, needs to be flexible. So we've made sure that we've said between 1 and 2 days for that. So we've made that flexible. We've emphasized that the presentations to the team can be made by members of the community, but obviously that needs to be done with care. So short presentations organized in consultation with the selection group, made by community members who can offer balanced perspectives on the needs of the working groups. In particular, specialized information needed to ensure that the selection of skilled persons for particular working groups. Inputs in the form, but not limited to, brief presentations, written information, videos, etc. So I'll just whiz on a little bit. Interviews with the candidates. Yes, we've said the interviews will all be done together. We've added into the criteria that they'll be looking for the ability to do the work that's needed and having the skills needed, including those skills needed for specific roles. So if there are specific roles needed, for example, in the TDC, it's important that we select candidates who can do that role. So the independent teams thing, we've just had that explained, and that was I'd also like to thank the person who came up with the suggestion to split that into 2 rounds. And we believe that that's likely to give a better result. So there's 1 round, 2 rounds, and this is all we've just had that explained. So a couple of little notes. Yeah, members of this is at the end basically that we decided that it would be a bit of a waste if we had another selection process taking place sometime in the next month or 2. It would be rather waste of all the training that those people had gone through, so that they would be allowed to have their names could go forward into within the following year. Their names could actually go forward for another selection process. So those people will hopefully be quite knowledgeable by the time they've been through all of this process. So it would be useful. And the note at the bottom there, the time frame is flexible. It depends on the number of groups open for the selection processes, candidates, etc., and determined by the organization team. Typically, we reckon 3 working days. Yeah, confidentiality. As Philippe explained, we have the selection teams will be working together to select candidates. If they've got 4 working groups or 5 working groups to select, It could take longer than 1 day. Now, it's quite important in this process that those people don't chatter to one another at any point. We feel that it's better that those teams work independently and independently of each other. So if it doesn't finish in 1 day, then we're asking them not to communicate with another team overnight. We have to trust them. So that's it. So for my presentation right now, is there anything else we're missing? Oh, okay. Yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. PWG. Let's make it a bit bigger. So, just for those who don't know the PWG off by heart, this is what the PWG presently says. The working groups are included in these guidelines. The Working Committee, the Orville Council, FAMC, L'Avenir, and Entry Board. But it says in brackets there, excluded from Part 3. Now, Part 3 is a selection process. So it was intended when this was written to create a separate selection process for the TDC. So what we have said is that we believe that our process is suitable for selection of the TDC, so that will need to be changed. That will need to be removed from there. So when this goes out for vote, that will be part of the thing that will be voted for. So that's, we hope, will solve that particular issue. Just to let you know that there is a part here which covers deselection, which people may or may not know about, removal of members during the term. There is a section already there, but it only covers removal of members by the team itself, by the group itself. It just says basically that if there's a member that is not pulling their weight, the rest of the team can ask them to leave. Now, what has been asked for as something a bit different, which is that the community itself should be able to do that. And as I mentioned earlier, we were, whilst we were processing the feedback, we were asked, it came up in the feedback. Now, as I said before, we at that point said, look, we don't have the capacity to do that, to work on another proposal. And so we went to the Orville Council and said, look, we don't feel that they were the initiators of all of this, so we said, look, we don't feel that this is something that we can do. So we've passed, and we passed it to them, and they have taken it up, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. This is the main topic of discussion between me and Martin and some people around. I would just seeing the number of feedbacks that ask us to include the deselection, counted something like 40 people, which is quite a lot of people asking to integrate deselection within the selection. So I think that actually it raised the question of what are we doing here, in the sense, or not in general, like in life and in Orville, but about this selection. I think the question itself is a bit biased. What we really should come is not really the selection of the working groups, but the constitution of the working groups. Like the community must ensure that, legally speaking, and we have, let's say, a working committee to present because it is required by the Foundation Act. So it is at any point in time. So let's say deselection. Can the community decide to deselect the whole working committee at once? It is very much possible according to an RAD. Right now, there's only RAD which allows the people to deselect. That's one of the probably coming one. But what if we deselect the whole working committee at once? It's not a smart thing to do, honestly. So that's why having a deselection process is important. The thing is, Martin and I were kind of burnt out during the, doing this thing, and we got kind of this selection, the RAD and the RAM1 and the RAM2 and the feedbacks and all, like it's very heavy. So we'd like to get through this, and having a
acceptable selection process is really an emergency right now, so that's what we'd like to expedite it. But about the deselection, I would say, as I explained, like for me, it is about making sure that we are represented at any point in time correctly. So that includes that, yes, as a community, we make mistakes when we select people, and we shouldn't be bound for them just to decide that they are stuck in that for 4 years, and we as a community should be able to manage this in a smart way, and that's the deselection process.
Okay, as I
Yeah,
understood.
so, what, like, can I finish?
Please.
It's not easy. Thank you. So basically what we asked the council, like what to do, and the council replied to us, don't worry, we're taking care of it, more or less. Later on, we don't have, so we asked like, what you guys are doing? Like, no answer. So there's a RAD going on, probably maybe it will be the next one for this topic. Having a RAD for deselecting people is just like having a bulldozer for something. So I would like really to hear about the council here, and for me this is right in the center. Like this is what we're talking about today. Like selection is, but actually it is making sure that we have correctly like people. What we can, but people in the working groups, and that includes like to tell people like, sorry, please, like we want you out. This is very difficult thing that might be even more difficult than the selection, but that's not something we just can escape. And leaving it just like in the hand of the goodwill of the council, I am sorry, I do not agree. The council basically is biased on this story. The council is just saying, are we taking the risk of being selected ourselves? Like it is a topic of the community and not the council. So I'd like to hear from them what they have in mind, and this is damn urgent.
Okay, thank you, Philippe. We have council members here, and Shivaya is already standing up. Would you like to clarify on like where you're at with this deselection subgroup and what's going on?
And also look, we are like you feeling that this is very important, and we have other things running. So we have then looked for people, and have actually now people have stepped forward to put work and effort and work into this. But we will, I mean, as far as we have been reflecting on, amending the participatory working group document accordingly. This is just started now. We have people who have actually agreed, and they will start this or next week. And it will be done as a concentrated effort.
Can you maybe share something about who's part of this group, as far as it's possible already? Or
it's not the council. We are gonna liaise. And you know, I want to say this also. We are not so divided. Yeah, we have different views in our group, but so far we have been stirring this boat graciously. So I don't like to say we are divided. We are not always fully in one or the other, but we represent the residents' assembly and we do the work required. Whether we have this opinion and that, yes, sometimes we are not totally in sync, but we have no major issues that prevents us from working.
Can you answer the question, please? Who is in this group?
I don't know, I mean, Suryan, I can, look. I can answer. Let's not get frustrated for no reason. I also, give him the mic. Please. He can.
How did you select those people?
Okay, I'm Suryan. So Philip, I'm surprised you're so frustrated because we actually asked you to come up with this, right? We asked you to look into this, but then you said you didn't want to. So then it came back to us. So we said, okay, we'll do what we can. Now, because the SPRTF is ongoing now, and we're going to have a vote for which selection process we're going to do, it seemed like something urgent. So, well, it is something urgent. So we didn't have the time to reach out to the community for an open call. I mean, maybe that's something we should do. We could vote on that in this meeting if you want. But so what we did, I'll just answer your question, is the people that we invited were Elisa, Mael, Surya Mai, Enrique, and there's one person missing. Who? Oh, and Alan. Yeah. So we chose these people because we know they're very good with this sort of thing. And that was the best that we could do. What's missing, Philippe? Go ahead. Please tell me what's wrong with what we did.
Open call to the community.
Right.
Hey guys, who has input? Like,
Yeah.
okay, one more thing here. SPRTF, you notice, like, we end up with 2 people.
Yeah.
Like, as I said, like, we're burnt out, Martin and myself.
Yeah.
Because the council decided that there were only 7 people. We had 12 volunteers. So that you decide that there are 7, like Sanjeev is gone. We have 2 people who kind of never showed up. 1 people who resigned and 1 people is TOS. So that, please, like, there are so many, as we've shown with Martin, we had so many feedbacks, very interesting things, like people who have put their brain and their mind, and people we don't even know, like, are they here and all and all. And we came, arguably, with a better proposal now. Your community is full of that. Like, don't put your subcommittee and all, like, people, your small circle of friends, and say, like, don't worry, guys, like, go back to sleep. We're going to present you a deselection process with the people we trust. Go open it.
Yeah.
Like, and now, today is the day. Like, start it. Like, call for people.
Good idea. So let's talk about 2 things. First of all, the SPRTF was in the hands of the RAS. The council gave it to the RAS, and the RAS are the holders. So it's out of the hands of the council. Plus, if you look at, I think I remember correctly, the SPRTF, when it was formed, that any of the 12 members, so 7 were chosen, any of the 12 members were supposed to replace anybody that dropped out. Right? So the SPRTF should have been aware of that, and the RAS. So that's to that point. So that had been covered and thought about. 2, yeah, so as I just said, it just seemed like something urgent. So, and we offered you to do it. You didn't want to do it, so we took it back. And then that was the first step. So, and Philip, listen, Philip. So the reason we did that is just because we felt it was urgent. Now, if there's no reason why we wouldn't make an open call to the community. I'm always vying for that. I always want to do it in that way. Right? So we just thought we'd do it quickly and see if we can't get it in place before the SPRTF votes, and we can somehow insert it. At the same time, Philippe, even if something is suggested, it always comes to the community, and the community always has an opportunity to give feedback. Right? So it's not entirely behind closed doors. Anyhow, what I'm hearing you say is you want an open call to the community to join the deselection group. Right? Which is fine with me. Totally fine. Yeah.
So I guess you take it back to your team and the RES to see if there's either an open call to select a new group or to add people to the already constituted subgroup?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The only thing to consider is that it will take longer, obviously. And it will not be ready by the time the SPRTF goes to a vote. But I guess that's also okay.
So it will be an additional process.
Why are you
This
shaking your head?
SPRTF, this proposal will go for voting, and there will be a deselection proposal coming up afterwards. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what you're saying is to try to include it in this SPRTF for the voting, which will need to be seen, no? Because if this proposal goes for voting after this meeting, there will be no time to include anything. So there might be another process needed for the next proposal on the deselection. More time.
Just 1 month.
Okay, let's not get worked up about lost time. There's maybe more that you want to know or ask. We have like a time frame for about like 30 minutes, maybe if there are questions on the refined proposal, on the feedback that was taken up or not. Sabine would like to take names. We would maybe start with taking 10 names and then see where we're at with the time and then add more people if needed. There's one hand here. It's the first number 1 on this board now. There's Dorle in the back. Oh, it was Dorle. Anyone else so far? Okay, so I guess then we can... There's someone in the back on the chair. Mauna. My name's Julia. Okay, I guess we go with these 6 for now and then see if there are more questions coming up.
I just have 2 short questions. First question is whether you have thought of including people who would be TOS in the part on presentation of the candidates, like
Yes.
especially if it happens in July or in June.
Yes.
Some people might not be
The
here.
answer is yes.
Okay.
I prefer to do one question at a time so I can remember them. Yes, we included the online possibility for interviews, so I think that should answer that. Yeah.
Okay, and the second is more of a comment, which I had given as a feedback, but I just feel like giving it again, which is that I'm personally a bit puzzled with the word candidates. I do feel it always gives a very politicized dimension to the whole selection process, and I would really personally value if we could use the word applicant, like in any other job, to avoid having then candidates who are opposing each other and who have to get the vote of other people and so on, because it does have, words do carry a baggage. That was just a comment.
Thank you for that feedback, and now I know who it came from. But it was the only one, so out of 120 people. So.
So my name is Gundolf. I'm referring to what is yellow highlighted about that the PVG has to change, and in case this is changed to integrate the TDC. For me, TDC is not one group. And if you look around to the expert, they have very clear two different groups. One who takes generally the input of the community, and the other one is those who have the freedom to see how the input has to be translated. So we need two different mandates. And the mandates is for me a trigger, because in the feedback it was called, it has to, every mandate has to apply the charter. And after it's written, it's only a reminder. For me, the charter with all the 4 points is essential, that this has to be like the program of a party that we vote. And if someone doesn't go along the program or along our charter, for me, this is a reason for not selecting a name or deselecting, but to look very clearly if in the past or for the future, if someone doesn't apply to the 4 points, that this is a reason to become deselected. And maybe someone knows how to integrate this.
Yeah, this is, I think this is beyond what I can sort of answer really, but nevertheless, I am aware that there are controversies over the TDC mandate, and that there was a mandate which was approved by the community in 2017, and then there was something else which came from the governing board, and they chose to work to the governing board. Look, it's not for the selection process to work out the mandate. The mandate has to be there, and the community needs to decide on which mandate it is that the mandates for the working groups. The community, so far the community is all the working groups here that we've listed. It has been the community that has basically chosen those mandates. So we're not, but that's not part of this process. If we're talking about deselection, then that's already something we've talked about, and the council has, along with a new group, will do that. So I hope that's answered.
Do I understand right that before any selection will start,
yeah,
we have to have the mandate of
sure.
We have the mandate, and the mandate needs to be changed according to, we have two groups, not one TDC, but two members, and I propose, I wrote already in my feedback, I propose that in all our working groups, it has to be very clear not to remind people to the charter,
Yep,
but to make it obligatory. So if this is taken care from the Residents' Assembly or whoever, that before any selection starts, that this is done.
Yeah, look, it's all part of the. If you look at the training interviews with the candidates, deep resonance with the charter, the dream, and to be a true Orwellian. So that's something that they need to show. They need to show that. So that's already there. As far as the mandates are concerned, we've already addressed that at the beginning when that was there in the previous version, was that the RAS will keep track of the mandates of all the working groups in terms of the terms of the members. Each working group needs to notify when there are resignations, etc. So the mandates are really part of the whole thing. And in fact, the training that the team get, the selection team get, the preparation sessions, include a session on the mandates of the particular working group.
It's a reminder of the
Yeah, yeah.
It's so weak.
It's weak.
Too weak. I'm here. This is a part of my life.
Sure.
And if you reflect this so weak,
Hmm.
what can I do? I can cry. I can pray.
You're the only one that's commented on that, so
Maybe there are more who will resonate with you.
sure,
Because we have a reason that
sure, I
things
understand.
going up and we have a possibility to keep all of it safe.
Sure. I'm here for the same reason, so please, I understand.
Let's make it stronger.
Okay.
Stronger in what sense?
In the feedback, it was not to remind people, but that is obligatory. You have to. If not, you're kicked out. Understand?
Okay. Okay. Look, as with anybody who gives feedback right now, I hope somebody's making notes of the feedback. Anyway, it's being recorded, so we look. Anybody that gives feedback right now, we have two options. Towards the end, we will decide whether this proposal can go forward or not. If the answer is no, then those feedbacks can be again looked at, and new feedbacks can be looked at and incorporated. So at the moment, I'm saying we've put it in the best we felt possible. If we are given the chance to modify it again, let's see if we need to strengthen it. If there's other voices that also ask it to be strengthened. Okay?
We will add your name.
Hi, my name is Eric. I have a few questions and remarks. I was wondering if it should be mentioned that people not nominated with the selection process or any approved RAD decision are illegitimate.
What do you mean by illegitimate?
They are not legitimate
For what?
to be selected. It happened that some people have been selected not in the right way.
Okay.
So what do we do in those cases? Let's say there is a takeover, and some people,
Yeah, sure.
Anyway,
No.
we can imagine anything.
Yeah.
If it happened that
Sure.
some kind of whatever organization decide to nominate a member, what do we do?
Okay. Look, we have now, it was part of quite some debate whether or not we should have a feedback process. And that feedback process, we decided in the end that it should be in there. In past selection processes, it wasn't, and other processes it was. So in some previous processes, it was a very strong part of the... no? You don't? Okay. Do you want to try and answer?
I don't think what you're saying, it has anything with the feedback about the candidates. It's an organization basically taking over. Like if there's a martial law in India and they say like they dismantle Auroville, like I think no one has an answer for this. Like what we try to do. I think what eventually one thing that's again a question around the deselection process. Like we should be able to have more flexibility about this. Now, like if you're by chance, like if you're thinking about the TDC, for example, our TDC has just decided that they don't follow the mandate of the community. So what to do? Like this is beyond the selection and even the constitution of it. It is really what is the TDC. Now I can very shortly, just a suggestion. We as a community can decide to have a town planning authority. Community. with the mandate of the community that we give to them. If the people that choose to go another way and all, like, we cannot just tell them, like, please don't. I mean, we can say, but we know the answer. But what we can do is decide that, no, as a community, we must have a town planning authority which represents the residents.
At least people should agree that they cannot be nominated in another selection process, another process that is the one that is.
We cannot really. I don't
assembly.
believe in having a blacklist of people that they cannot be stripped out of their right of being a citizen of Auroville. Like, this has to do maybe with the exit policy or something like that.
Okay. As a mentor, with the other mentor I'm working with, we are kind of struggling with another kind of big topic are the feedbacks. Okay. So we kind of got a draft from Mandakini who made us aware that there was a subgroup working on feedbacks. So in the draft
yeah,
that never been approved, it is mentioned that sentence: please take accountability of what you share here. You may be invited to elaborate your views during the processing and verification stages of the feedback. I would even add, evidences will be asked to confirm some feedback, because we know here there can be feedbacks that are totally wrong in a way. So what do we do? That is one question. That has to be very addressed by a big group.
Can I answer one question at a time? It's easier, because I don't remember them otherwise. Look, with the feedback, we have... There's always a decision to be made, how far we go with the feedback. Do we simply say, do we go to what we were doing with the previous one but two sessions, where we had a separate feedback committee, TFRC it was called, Temporary Feedback Review Committee, who worked on all the feedback for weeks, trying to decide whether it was right or wrong. They went to the working groups to get information. They went to the here and there. And I tell you, I've interviewed people that were on those feedback TFRC groups, and it was a fearful job. And they were highly stressed, and it was very, very difficult to find anybody that would do the work. So in the end, the next group selection, we decided we'd do away with the feedback. We wouldn't have feedback at all. So now we've introduced something which there's some feedback, and that we get the opportunity to the person who's having that feedback to respond. Then that person is not prevented from taking up a position. They're simply, that feedback is passed on to the selection team. We believed that was the fairest way to do it.
No, the simple fact that the applicant can answer, it's great, but people should really understand that they are accountable, they are responsible about what they send. And for instance, we were thinking with a co-mentor who is here, some clarifications. For instance, when it is written, records of violence or sexual conduct, does the term record mean police records, for instance, or what? Are threatening speeches constituting violence also? All those kind of things. That, for me, has to be clarified. No, for us, has to be clarified. Way more specific. And it is written, huh? The records of violence, it's written there. What do we mean by records? No, just to be just more specific, more precise. What do we mean by records? No, I'm talking about this feedback.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't know. And like the idea here is that the feedback thing, as we said before, like I think we spoke a lot in the first meeting. Whatever you do, you'll be criticized. Like yes feedback, no feedback, feedback review team. Then the responsibility on those, and there's no procedure 1, 2, 3, and this is valid feedback and this is not valid feedback, without people really considering with all their consciousness and all their voluntary thing, like yes, this is valid or not. So at the end, what we chose here is whatever is sent will be communicated to the selection group, and we trust somehow the selection group to take it over as yes, it's a serious one or not. That's the most, because as Martin said, like we tried so many things, but now, like if you have some better idea, like but like pushing it now and trying to make it super, I mean, having something really different or more precise, or according to that, it will delay the whole thing. And at the end, personally, I don't really believe that it's worth it, because it will be always subject to a lot of interpretations, human interpretations, and then it all depends on the quality of the people who will get those information.
And the last one is the assessments of the applicants. For me, is not enough. It has been proven it is not. I would suggest a strong training after the applicants have been chosen. A strong training in the criteria for the applicants.
Okay, I can respond to that one. First of all, it's not part of the selection process itself, but it is part of the PWG. And there's already a select section in the PWG talking about training of people in working groups. Now, if that needs strengthening, fine. That could be something which should be done, and more work would need to go into that. But yes, it's there in the PWG. It's not in the selection process, so we haven't considered it as a part of the selection process. So, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you because I've worked in working groups, and I know that the skills that are needed, but there's also training needed. So, and it should happen. It's there in the PWG. Okay, thank you.
First, I guess a comment that at the way top of your document, it needs to have a version number and a date.
Oh, that was you that put that one in? Yes.
No, but it does.
Look,
May I put
yes,
it
yes,
also?
Dola. It will, because it will go into the PWG. This document does not stand on its own. It goes into the PWG. And the PWG will be updated to 2020, and it'll have all the dates and everything on it. I did, by the way, because you said so in your feedback, I did add a date to the bottom. There you are.
Yay. Okay.
That was because of you. Thank you.
Thank you. No, because there's too many documents in Orville which are totally
I understand. But it will be integrated into the PWG, and the PWG itself will be updated.
Because I will not sign any document which doesn't have the exact
No,
thing on the top.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Okay. And then the other thing is regarding the deselection. I think it's essential that the deselection goes into this document. and whether it means we have to wait another 3 weeks before we can go for voting, or another RAM, I think it's worth it, because we have seen now, I think, quite obviously what the consequences can be.
Sure.
So I think it's worth the wait. It should be as soon as possible, but it's worth the wait. And I will very much hope that the RAS, in the meantime, takes the other RADs forward, because we can listen to other people in meetings while we wait for this to be worked out. I hope people are listening to that.
I think we've said all we have to say on that, so unless Philippe wants to say something.
Yeah, I think it all depends. I really would like to ask the people and ask the pulse, whatever, because there are pros and cons. The 3 weeks, like we'll need help for that. Having ideas how to do it, it's pretty different, and I suspect it might be even more difficult than putting together a selection. Having a DeSelection, that's something we never really did. And that's not easy, just to tell people, we don't like you anymore, go out. So I hope it will be included in some pulse, whatever, but it's not in my hands.
Next, I have 2 questions. One is about half-time, 3/4 of time, full-time. We can see in our current scenario right now, in our working groups, the people are half-time or we're not sure what, which means we don't have the equivalent of, let's say, 7 members in a group. We have 3 people of half-time, 1 that we never see, etc. That should be also a criteria and follow-up of presence and attendance. And there should be a mandatory, not a reminder. And also, if in the selection process, I already asked that last time, people managed to say if they were applying for half-time or full-time, and it was not taken into consideration that then if there's 2 people for half-time, they make 1 member, technically in time. When people decided there would be 7 members in a group, I hope they meant 7 full-time members, for example, if the mandate says 7%. So either we change the mandate and say exactly what those 7 people are supposed to be doing, because really, the amount of work that there is to do in groups, I don't think we can entertain much longer half-time, which also means that those people are doing another full job somewhere else that is not, maybe not in those short terms that we have. So I would add something there, because you mentioned it somewhere. I appreciate that it's there.
Yep, it's there.
Yeah.
Candidates should clarify their availability, full-time, part-time, and months of the year.
So if they say that it's part-time, then what happens when they get selected? Should they have another person with them half-time? Or how does it work?
That's more to do with the mandates themselves, because the mandates really have to be more specific in that area. We have not looked at the mandates themselves. We've only looked at what the mandates have said in terms of whether they need so many people. And you're right. There need to be some criteria there written into the mandate. That wasn't our job at the time.
So I would suggest to add it in the selection process for now. And you also mentioned something that you decided not to follow up. I've forgotten what it was, along those lines. Okay, it will come back. Never mind. And about the clearance panel, because whatever, the feedback is the main problem in our selection every single time. There's been a drama every single time around feedback, which I understand why. It's difficult. But there was an RAD, and there was a vote of the community. I think the council last time said they would check. I haven't heard back. So, there was an RAD with a decision, with a full document called the clearance panel. And that was exactly meant for that, to have, like Eric was asking, proper investigation, so people could not just given a fact and another fact which is not possible to verify while you're sitting on the selection table, So the people who want, and I mean, there was a whole process, could have a proper investigation together and have this available when case feedback comes, where people could. So it ended up with a weird situation that the task force that was started just gave up, apparently. But I don't think that the task force deciding that it's not what they want to do should stop the whole voting process. So something is missing there. I hope the council will clarify, because that is stopping every single process since then. So that is something that was pending last time. I already asked the same question. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, thank
Council,
you.
I guess.
Sure.
Thank you.
Selection process.
It is, because if you're talking about feedback and it goes against what the other RAD said, that definitely needs to be looked at.
Yeah, we've not taken into account the either a TFRC or a clearance panel. We've not taken that into account. We've just assumed that it doesn't exist, so because it's not part of the PWG. The existing PWG, we've said that we incorporate it into the existing PWG. So it's not part of that, so we've basically excluded it. So it's a whole new debate if we want to go back to that form of feedback.
I think it was meant as a separate parallel process that would alleviate this one, because we run the little danger of going through, once again, a longer selection process and someone eventually out of it challenging it because of that clearance panel not being followed for any reason. So we need first to fully clarify this, otherwise we're going to end up in more problems.
My question was on feedback, and it has been amply discussed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you, Mona. Tom, just one more.
Yeah, the one thing is we are talking of fighting lies, cynicism, arrogance, and all these things. So we are trying our level best with our brains, with our computers and everything. But how far do we go in that fight when it's destroying us all the time? And, you know, for example, record of violence or sexual misconduct, financial mismanagement. Okay, we write it. It has been written already 20 years ago. Nothing has been done. Absolutely nothing has been done. And people are experiencing a form of impunity, how you say. They just go, and it's normal. It's absolutely normal. And this normality is what we have to fight. And I'm not sure that by spelling out again new... okay, we can always write that. We can always vote that. But then what? You see, what happened in the past 3-4 months, it's becoming routine almost. Some people try to keep the flame, some people try to stay alive. But, you know, like people get their 3 months visa, all these things, and it goes on. So this is more what I want to discuss. This is more what I want to see. So my question, I conclude, are we sure that we are on the right way? Because we have in front of us a big monster that is challenging the validity, the legality of whatever we are doing. So are we addressing the problem we face as Auroville in the right approach? Is this the right approach?
Look, I'm not sure anywhere any more than anyone else is sure. We've done our best here.
I'm not criticizing anyone.
No, I'm not. Look, I accept that we have problems right now in the community, as a community. I accept that. But look, this isn't intended to address that. But it's intended to try and improve the quality of the people that we are putting into our positions to do the work that needs to be done. That was the intention. The intention was to have a process which will somehow make a step. It'll make a step. It won't be perfect. And at the end of this, we hope, and we put a clause at the end actually, to say it needs to be reviewed.
And then?
Because this is an experiment. Yeah?
Okay, no, it's an experiment, but one can see today the danger that Auroville is facing. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, as Martin said, we've done our best. Like, I hope even like we could have been better, but that's what we came with. And for me, like even like if you want to go there, like it's the intent itself like is more important than the result. So will it really improve the constitution of the working group? This we can always hope so, but we can hope that it will involve the people and make people think and being involved correctly. So now I think what you're referring is the legalities of those things. We have something called PWG. That's what we can put on the table when the government of India asks us, like, how did we constitute this working committee? And like, if it's done correctly, it will help us. That's it. Like, after, as I said, like, if we have a martial law, if we have an atomic bomb dropped at us, like, there's nothing much we can do.
Thank you. Actually, you just introduced yourself, the question that I had, which is about reviewing. Because whenever we are compelled to formulate a new system, we are in virgin territory, more or less. And we know it's an experiment, and it's important. I think we also know that there is a certain time pressure that we get this through, that we get a broad agreement, but we know that there's many areas that are a little bit dicey, that are gray to us. So my question is just, have you thought of ways, are there ways that we can allow for an easy review and adaptation process without having to, go through the very heavy and cumbersome procedures that we have to change our rules?
The answer is, at the moment, we don't. But I would personally very much like us to have a quicker and a more effective review process, especially as for example, the Auroville Council, I think their mandate goes back to 2003 or something like that. And it's been stuck there because we haven't had the time to review it. So I fully agree, but let's find a way of doing it so that it can be reviewed more quickly.
We try to make this kind of flexible with giving guidelines somehow, like giving some principle, but like make it flexible. So there's always a trade-off. Now reviewing and all, as Martin said, like I think we're a bit stuck with this RAD thing. Like if we want to change a comma in one of those texts that have been approved, then that's the legal thing. That's the only thing that the community can decide is going through this RAD, which is, I think, way too heavy for so many things. That's one of the topics I hope will be taken soon.
Okay, there's one more question by Gundolf. Anyone else who wants to ask something? Otherwise, Ramesh, okay. So we will have you two, and then see if we can look at the pulse, seeing if the proposal is ready for voting. Gundolf, please.
I have only a suggestion. For many years, we have been around 500, and then we try to find a consent, and then if we got stuck, someone raised, oh, let's try this way for 2 years. And I want to suggest something that you put into a revised version, 2 or 3 years, that we know in advance this is a deadline, that we don't come after.
Thank you.
Martin, is there anything that would disqualify a person from the selection process? Absolutely.
That's an interesting, that comes back to the feedback again. We haven't specified anything which would disqualify, but we've asked for feedback on the most serious things. Now, we do have to give the people who are selecting some credit for, and we've actually put in there now also some training on feedback, on processing feedback. So, look, if you were on that selection team and you saw somebody who had been accused of sexual violence and they didn't give an adequate response to that, would you select them for the working committee? I think we have to give the people some credit for the work that they do and trust them. So this is the process. This is what we based it on.
So there is nothing in the past history that would ever eliminate the selection of a person.
There has been in the past, but it's basically that process is finished. It's no longer. There was the TFRC that, and then there was, but that process no longer exists.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not a question. When you were saying, is there something that would disqualify, just the first thing that came to my mind was not being part of the RA. Yeah, you have to be part of the RA to be part of a working group. No, there's a common thing. It seems logical. But to be part of the RA, you would have to be a certain age. Because, yeah, it just came to me. That's why I don't need my name on the list or anything.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, we would resume to the next part, for which I would like to invite Tatjana, which is the pulse.
I've got that slide somewhere. So it's the next one.
Thank you. So now you heard everything about the proposal. Questions, comments and all. As it is envisioned by the decision-making policy, now it's time to get a sense of the participants of the meeting, those who participate in person and online. I just would like to highlight that please remember that in that pulse, only confirmed Aurovilians can participate, those who are present here and those who are online. So that sense, that common agreement, if the proposal that you can see now, so that's what this proposal will look when we will put it for a voting. So, and the question is the revised proposal, refined proposal ready to go out for voting? If you feel like, yes, it's good enough to go for voting, please raise your hand. And those who participate online, please use also the tool which you will see on the screens. Well, who would agree? RAS members, could you please help me just count hands Ganesh, Satish, those who are present, done. Without deselection. Deselection needs further refinement, as we heard from the SPRTF team and the council. Thank you. So Giovanni, online participants. The process is going. Thank you for your patience. So please give us a few more moments. I cannot hear you.
Those who are participating online, there is a chart, a chat to express your pulse. In this case, it was asked if you say yes. Okay, so it takes a while because the online participants just get into this chat and have to type yes, I guess. So we have to be patient for 2-3 more minutes.
There will be another question. Please hold on. I think so, yeah. If you've got some clear numbers. So online participants, they prefer to go on to proceed with the process. So, and next. All right, second question that we put here is the voting options. There will be now something that you can also reflect. There is one opportunity, for example, to have only yes-no voting, which is quite simple. And option B, we can include the third option. I don't know, but I would like to give my voice to support the majority. So, wait. So those who would like to have only yes-no option, please, hands up. Online voting continues. In the meantime, those who would like to support B option, now it's your turn to voice your opinion. Looks like majority supports the option A from the room. And online participants.
We still have to ask, so you have to give the participants another minute.
And thank you again for being so patient.
It's only now live. So those who are connected online, please go again in the chat and express your preference between option A and B, as Tatiana just described. And we wait 30 seconds. People start to vote. What was the result in the room, Tatiana?
A option, 100%.
Okay. So online is a split group with mostly the option B.
It's interesting. In numbers?
In numbers, not so many. 7 so far. 7 votes for option B and 3 votes for option A.
It seems to me that majority is here for the option A. All right, for more details, we will
Shall
definitely...
we close the voting online
Yes,
then?
I believe it's time. Thank you very much. So now it's, again,
Right.
Julia. And yes, next steps. We are going to publish the report of the follow-up residence assembly meeting. And after that, we will announce the beginning of the residence assembly decision making, which is voting technically. Thank you, all of you, for being present here and for your feedback and for your active participation and engagement in this matter. Thank you, the selection process review task force, those who are present, those who are absent, but they shared the inputs. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Unity Pavilion team and Oroville Radio. One more piece of information, and anyway, Julia will do the closing. I just would like to remind those who are present online, that next week, Monday next week, we are going to have the first residence assembly meeting to discuss the proposal which was submitted to the residence assembly service through a group of concerned residents as a petition to vote to consider no confidence in the working committee. So it's a long proposal. I'm not sure that it was quite precise. So please welcome next Monday, same time, 4 p.m., 6:30, I believe, p.m. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're ending on time. That's almost impossible to believe, but we will. And I would like to invite you just for a moment of silence all together before we leave the room.